Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and we are back with another episode of the Golden Age, our Warhammer Fantasy Battle Report series for 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy. And this is battle point number 71. It is a 3,000 point battle that is fought between King Khalifa as well as my army. King Khalifa is bringing the Schwarzwald Free Companies, a 3,000 point Empire army, and I'm playing the Legion of the Hellmouth, a 3,000 point Ogre Kingdoms army. So I finally painted up enough models for my Ogre Kingdoms army to actually field a full 3,000 point army, so I'm really super excited to see exactly how this army plays at. I've been dying to use Ogre Kingdoms in a 3,000 plus battle for a very long time now because that's the level I like playing at when it comes to Warhammer Fantasy Battle. I'm really anxious to see exactly how this army performs. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to play some background music real quick. If you want to see exactly what we're bringing for this battle report, go ahead and pause and take a look at your own leisure. So that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
I've never prayed you before. I have no tongue for it. No one, not even you, will remember if we were good men or bad. Why we fought, or why we died. No. All that matters is that two stood against many. That's what's important. Balor pleases you, Crom. So grant me one request. Grant me revenge. And if you do not listen, then the hell with you.
Assemble the army!
So the scenario rules for this one is Battle Line is the most traditional battle of Warhammer there possibly is in terms of scenarios. We have standard deployments as well as standard victory conditions, and it is the favorite type of scenario we like playing here on this channel. So with the scenario rules over, let's go and talk about the battle plan real fast. Here is an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield, playing on a 4x6 table. I am deployed on the near side of the table, while King Khalifa is deployed on the far side of the table. And as you pretty much see, I just pretty much lined up my army entirely in a line formation, using a denied flank type of deployment. I'm using the table edge to protect my right-hand flank, and the rest of my army is kind of spread out from there through the middle of the army as well. For the most part, my infantry forces are primarily located on the right-hand side of the battlefield, while my cavalry forces are located on the left-hand side. And this one is going to be kind of a, if you wanted to go up against, my buddy King Khalifa has a really powerful army list that he actually put together, and this time around he's actually packing 2 steam tanks in this army list, so that part is absolutely terrifying. Now, to help balance things out, of course, I'm also packing 2 iron blasters as well, so it kind of works out for the best. As you can see there, I do have a Stonehorn now that is represented by Mashaf, the Sorrow of the Steppes, right down the middle of the table. My plan is hopefully I can destroy his cavalry, which is on the left-hand side of the battlefield, with my iron blasters, and as well as my lead belchers. Hopefully what I can do is destroy that unit of knights, destroy those guys and get those guys shot to pieces, and then at the same time attack his infantry forces by flanking on the left-hand side with my Mordheim cavalry as well as my Stonehorn, and then also using my infantry forces to attack him in the front. That's pretty much the plan I'm kind of going with in this battle plan. The only problem I got to worry about, he does have 3 cannons in his army. He's got 2 steam tanks as well as a great cannon. He also has a Hellblaster volley gun, and those artillery pieces are watching his flanks. So I do have to worry about that part, while his Reek infantry is right there in the middle of the table. He does use what formation known as the Griffin formation in this army, which means he uses skirmishers a lot to protect his forces. So I do have to worry about that and kind of like slowing me down a little bit, but hopefully I can mitigate that by just destroying his skirmishers by the ogre charges and then overrun and destroy him that way. And that's pretty much the battle plan I'm kind of going on this one. So with the battle plan, let's go and talk about deployment real quick. So this is a left-hand deployment for the Legion of the Hellmouth. Right there in the left, that is the Beastclaw Raiders. It is a unit of 4 Mordheim cavalry. They have full command. They're also packing heavy armor as well as iron fists, and they also have the standard of discipline as well, which gives them a +1 to their leadership score, making them leadership 8. Now they won't be able to use the general's inspiring presence ability, but in recent battle reports that I played with these guys, they've never been within range of the general's leadership bubble anyways, and they've always had to fall back and get overrun and stuff with failed attacks. So because I'm hoping that the +1 to the leadership will help him survive a little bit better on that. And then right next to him on the right hand side, that is Mashaf, the Sorrow of the Steppe. That is my Stonehorn proxy. That thing is an absolutely awesome model. That is actually from a miniature line called Reaper Minis. They have a wonderful miniatures series called the Bone series, where they actually sell 3D printer risen miniatures for like pennies on the dollar. In fact, that giant monster kit that I got right there cost me, I think, $10 at my local gaming store when it was all said and done. To be perfectly honest, the base that miniature sits on is actually more expensive than the actual model was when I bought that base on Amazon.com. So this kind of shows you exactly how cheap those Reaper minis are. I'm in love with that company. I love their products. But anyways, that's everything on the left-hand side there. In my center deployments, where majority of my military forces are located at. In the left-hand side, that is the Powder Gangers. That is a unit of 8 lead belchers with a bellower. They're packing light armor as well as lead belcher guns. Behind in the back are my 2 Iron Blasters. The one on the left-hand side is the Anvil of Hell, and the one on the right-hand side is Hammer of the Gods. Those are my 2 Iron Blasters, kind of lending support there as well. Right next to my Powder Gangers on the right-hand side, that is one of my Saber Tusks. That is Rohana, the Blood Tracker. That's a proxy that I got rid of from my Mornfang Cav. And then right next to them on the right-hand side, that is my brand new unit of bulls. There's 5 of those ogres in that unit. Those are called the Storm Seekers. And the Storm Seekers consist of 5 ogres with bellower as well as standard bearer. They got light armor, hand weapons, as well as iron fists as well. And then leading that unit is Shan Yu, the Fire Fist. That is my Fire Belly. He's a level 2 lore of Fire Wizard. He's got a great weapon. He's also packing the Hell Heart, and he's also got the Fireball as well as the Flaming Sword of Ruin spells as well. And then right next to him on the right-hand side, that is a huge unit of Iron Guts called Stankum's Legion. It is a Gut Star, so in case you guys aren't familiar with that build, it's basically a column formation of Iron Guts, which are led by your characters. On the left-hand side, that's my general. That's Taijin Khan, the Right Fist of Hell. He's my Slaughter Master. He's also a general. He's also a level 4 Lizard Wizard. He's also got the Lore of the Great Maw. He's packing an Iron Fist as well as hand weapon. He's got Fencer's Blades, Glittering Scales, as well as Greedy Fists. So it gives him a +1 to his strength. It also gives him 6 of ward save. Also makes him to where the point where people are trying to hit him on a 6-up for the most part. And the spells that he draw for this one are Blood Gruel, Spine Marrow, Bull Gorger, Toothcracker, as well as Troll Guts. Right next on the right hand side, that is Korgul, the Giant Breaker. That is my Bruiser. He is a He's got also my Battle Standard Bearer as well. He's got heavy armor. He's also packing the Gold Sigil Sword, so that way he strikes on initiative 10 and gives the unit some magical attacks. He's also got the Enchanted Shield as well, giving him +1 to his armor, and he's also got the Giant Breaker Big Name, giving him +1 to his strength, which is great because that way you can end some strength for his attacks, for his magical attacks. At the same time, the only downside is he can't refuse any challenges. And then right next to him, of course, is Stankum's Legion. That is a unit of 10 Iron Guts with full command on this one. They're packing heavy armor as well as great weapons, and of course they're bringing the Dragon Hag banner as well, because why not? And then right there on the right hand side, that is Dolkana the Destroyer. That is the last of my Saber Tusks, and that pretty much makes up my deployment in the center. And finally, here's my right hand deployment. You can see Dolkana the Destroyer on the left hand side. That's my other Saber Tusk. That's proxy with an Iron Gut. I had 2 of those guys spare lying around, so I decided to use them for that. And right next on the right hand side, that is the Red Rovers. That's a unit of 6 Ogres with Bellower as well as Standard Bearer. Those guys are packing hand weapons as well as light armor as well as Iron Fists. And that makes up my right hand deployment on this one. So across the battlefield is the Schwarzwald Free Companies. So on the left-hand side, King Khalifa has deployed Donner, which is his great cannon, which is right there on the top of the hill there. And right next on the right-hand side, that is the Panzer Baron. That is a Imperial Steam Tank as well. And that thing is pretty brutal as well. Steam tanks are absolutely terrifying. And the crazy part about this army is that my buddy King Khalifa actually has 2 steam tanks in his army now too. So that part is really, really frightening. And of course, right next to the Panzer Baron is the Vagrant Brotherhood. That has a huge unit of 20 Inner Circle Knights. Those guys are being given the Inner Circle upgrade. They're also packing great weapons. They got heavy armor, shields, bartered war horses. They got full command. They're also packing the Steel Standards. That way they can reroll 1s for charges, pursuits, and stuff like and breaks as well. And leading them, of course, is Sir Tybalt Kraus. He is the Vagrant Knight. He is a captain of the Empire. He's also got the Crown of Command. He's got full plate armor, shield, as well as a great weapon. So that unit's a really tough unit to crack, and that's absolutely terrifying because it's 7 wide and 3 deep, so it's a pretty powerful cavalry unit, all things considered. In the center lines of the Schwarzwald Free Companies, where all the infantry forces are primarily located at, this is a huge chunk of army I got to deal with this one here. Right off the center, right in the middle, that is called the Black Company. It is a unit of 37 great swords with full command, as well as also got the Standard of Discipline in that unit as well. And leading that is most of the characters. In the front, that is Gregor von Königsmark. He's an Archlector, who's also the general. He's got the armor of Meteoric Iron as well as the White Cloak of Ulrich. He's also packing a great weapon as well. In that unit is also Victor Helsbrad of the Wilds. He is a Battle Wizard Lord. He's a level 4 Lore of Life. He's also got the Book of Asher, giving him +1 to cast, as well as Dispel. And the spells he's packing for this one are Earthblood, Flesh the Stone, Throne of Vines, as well as Regrowth. And then finally, the last character he has in this unit as well is Dieter Moons, the Griffin Guard. He is a captain of the Empire. He's got full plate armor. He's got a great weapon as well as a shield. And he's also carrying the Griffin banner as well, which means they double their rank bonuses in close combat. The only downside, of course, is that they can never pursue a fleeing opponent if they should break. Now, attached to that huge unit of greatsword, he's got two other units of halberdiers, or 20 man apiece. That is the Red Company on the right-hand side, as well as the Blue Company on the left-hand side, just 20 halberdiers with light armor, as well as halberds. Those guys are two detached units attached to that unit as well. And then finally, up front, that is Rommel's Rangers. It is a unit of 10 archers with hand weapons, bows, as well as skirmishers, and they have 2 units of 5 archers as detachment right next to them as well. And then finally, in the back there, you can kind of see the dude standing by himself. That is Maximilian Max. He is a wizard lord, a battle wizard rather. He's level 2 lore of metal. He's got the Dispel Scroll. He's also packing the Enchanted Blades of Ibon, as well as the Glittering Robes. And that pretty much makes up the deployment here in the center. And finally, to make up his far right-hand flank, he has another steam tank, so he has 2 steam tanks in total. That is the Panzerwolf, is what it's called. And right next to him is a Hellblaster volley gun on the right-hand side that is called Blitzen. And that pretty much makes up his right-hand deployment for this one. So with deployment over with, we go directly to the top at turn number 1, and we roll off for initiative to see who will be going first. So that takes us directly to the top of turn number 1 for the Empire, and this photo is taken after the movement phase. And as you see in this photo, he actually kind of moves up kind of tentatively, doesn't really fully commit to the advance on this one for the most part. And that's very much the way that King Khalifa usually plays. He plays very cautiously with a lot of his forces as well. So that part was pretty rough. The first thing he does, of course, he has no charges to declare. So he starts to march up Rommel's Rangers with his 2 units of 5 archers as detachments. As you can see, they move at their full 8 inches. It says they're skirmishers, they could also still shoot their bows as well, which also makes them pretty deadly as well. At the same time, he also moves up the Black Company with the blue and red company respectively. They move up their normal 4 inches, moving slightly forward, and that's really about it for the most part. He does exactly the same thing with the Vagrant Brotherhood, just moving up their normal 8 inches forward as well, so that way they can protect his left-hand flank. Now, his steam tanks, the Panzerbear on the left-hand side advances forward with 15 inches with his steam points. They actually generated 5 steam points apiece on this one. He spent 3 of them to move forward. He's going to use 2 of them to fire his cannon. He does exactly the same thing with the Panzerwolf there on the right-hand side, only he moves up, I think, 9 inches is what he ends up doing, and then he uses 2 of his steam points in order to fire his great cannon as well. And everything else, of course, his war machines stay exactly where they're at, and that pretty much makes up his move phase on this one. So here's a close-up of the move phase. Here's a close-up of the Panzer Baron just rolling up forward and give them range to open fire with its great cannon. And there's actually 3 great cannons in this army, which is pretty terrifying. And here's a close-up of the Vagrant Brotherhood, as well as the Red Company, the Black Company, as well as Rommel's Rangers, moving forward as well, closing the distance between his army as well as mine. And finally, here's a close-up of Rommel's Rangers, as well as the Blue Company, as well as the Panzerwolf and Blitzen, getting ready to bear down some long-range fire directly into my troops. So with the move phase over with, we go directly to the magic phase. And during the magic phase, King Khalifa actually had a pretty successful magic phase, all things considered. The very first thing, of course, is he casts Throne of Vines off to get that Remains in Play spell for his Lore of Life wizard for Victor Helsbrad. He actually ended up getting 8 power dice this round. I only managed to get 4 of those, so I did try to stop it. He used 4 power dice to cast the spell, so naturally I used all 4 of my dice to try to stop it because Throne of Vines is really, really powerful and adds some really nice buffs to the Lore of Life spells for the remainder of the game. Unfortunately for me, though, I wasn't able to dispel it, so because of that, he managed to get Throne of Vines off, which pretty much used up all my dispel dice and left him 4 more dice to get off the rest of his spells. So the first spell, of course, he casts is Flesh to Stone. He gets that off on Rommel's Rangers, giving those guys 4 up on their toughness. So because of that, these archers from Rommel's Rangers are now toughness 7, which is absolutely terrifying to consider. And he also managed to cast Earthblood off on the Vagrant Brotherhood, so because of that, that huge unit of 21 Knights and Inner Circle Knights now have a 4 regen save, which is absolutely terrifying. The only good thing about that is I do have a Fire Wizard in my army with my Fire Belly Shan Yu, the Fire Fist, so I could possibly destroy that unit pretty good and get rid of their regen save, but at the same time, though, I'm not really in range or position in order to deal with that at this point. So, like I said, my opponent had a very successful magic phase this turn. So with the magic phase over with, go directly to the shooting phase. And in the shooting phase, oh my god, the shooting phase was absolutely painful in the shooting phase. My opponent opens up with both the Panzer Baron as well as Donner, his great cannon and steam tank on the left-hand side, and they actually open up directly onto Mashaf, the Sorrow of the Steppe. Luckily for me, though, the Stormnorn does have Stone Skeleton as a special rule, which means that any multiple wounding hits that he's suffering, he only has to suffer half the effects. So luckily for him, he only suffers 4 wounds. The only bad side, of course, is that Mashaf, the Sorrow of the Steppe, only has 1 more wound left on that Stonehorn, so that part was pretty atrocious. At the same time, he opens fires the Panzer Wolf directly into my Stankum's Legion and aiming the cannonball directly in front of my general at the same time. So Taijin Khan luckily gets to survive with a lookout stir roll. So because he managed to survive the shot getting to him. However, the other three Iron Guts in this unit were not so lucky as it travels throughout the entirety of the unit because the cannonball bounced like 10 inches. It managed to kill 3 of my Iron Guts right off the bat, dropping these guys down by 25%. Luckily for me, though, I did pass my panic check, so these guys didn't have to worry about fleeing. But just like that, within a blink of an eye, I'm down with 25% casualties for this unit, and that was absolutely horrifying. And for his last shooting with his shooting phase, he does open up with Rommel's Rangers, but they weren't able to do anything because, you know, they're only using strength 3 bows. However, the Blitzen, the Hellblaster volley gun, that thing managed to kill 3 of my ogres from the Red Rovers, and also managed to put 2 more wounds on the 4th guy as well, managing to cause up 11 wounds in total. It was absolutely crazy. I think he fired off like 22 shots with that Hellblaster volley gun, so that was absolutely devastating. Luckily for me, though, my Red Rovers do pass their panic check and they don't run. But at the same time, though, that was like, oh my god, I can't believe the amount of destruction that thing caused as well. And that's just the opening turns, and that was pretty rough. So with the shooting phase over with, we skip the combat phase because nobody's engaged in close combat, and we go directly to the top of turn number 1 for the Ogre Kingdoms. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 1 for the Ogre Kingdoms, and this photo is taken after the movement phase, and the first thing I do is, of course, I declare a charge with a couple of my Mornfang. My Mornfang, Dolkana, the Destroyer, he charged directly into the Panzer Wolf, so that way that thing's engaged in close combat, so that way it can't shoot its cannon anymore. At the same time, I do try to charge forward with Romana, the Blood Tracker, but unfortunately, though, I just fell just shy of actually running up and actually smashing directly into him, so because I only move up forward, I think like 6 inches is what I ended up doing for the most part as well. I also tried to declare a charge with the Stormseekers as well as with Stankum's Legions into the Rommel's Rangers, but unfortunately for me, though, I just only stumbled up, I think, 5 or 6 inches forward for both of them. I failed my charges, so that part was absolutely atrocious. At the same time, I also move up my Powder Gangers, just move up their normal moon allowance. I forgot to mention my Powder Gangers. You're wondering why one of them was missing. I did make a mistake earlier. It was some longbow shots from Rommel's Rangers that picked off one of my lead belchers, so I do apologize for that mistake. Speaking of which, though, I do move up the Powder Gangers up the normal moon allowance, so that way they can start opening fire as well onto that unit of archers, since because of that, I won't be able to, you know, do much of anything. The greatest charge, though, that was probably the most impressive one, though, was Mashaf, the Sorrow of the Steppe. That guy charged forward. I think I rolled 11 for his charge, so he goes charging across the battlefield and smashes directly into the front of the Vagrant Brotherhood. So I'm really excited to see exactly what that guy can do when it comes to getting a successful charge off on somebody. I'm really anxious to see exactly how he performs with his charge attacks and his impact hits, because he gets D3 plus 3 impact hits because he charged. So that part was kind of cool. At the same time, I also marched up the Mornfang Cavalry from the Beastclaw Raiders with the left-hand side to go around that tower, so that way they don't get engaged by the steam tank, which is right there in the middle of the battlefield from the Panzer Baron. And then finally, I move up my 2 Iron Blasters, the Anvil of Hell as well as Hammer of the Gods, moving up their normal 8 inches, so that way they can open fire with their cannons directly into the Panzer Baron because that steam tank needs to die. And then finally, of course, I forgot to mention on the far right-hand side, I just marched up the Red Rovers, so that way they can start putting some pressure on his right-hand flank. And that pretty much makes my movement phase on this one. So here's a close-up of the Mornfang Cavalry from the Beastclaw Raiders going around that Goblin Tower, so that way they can start assaulting the left-hand side of King Khalifa's army. And here's a close-up of my gunners. I have my Anvil of Hell as well as Hammer of the Gods getting ready to bear down with their Iron Blasters directly into the Panzer Baron. And here's a close-up as well of the Powder Gangers getting ready to open fire onto Rommel's Rangers. And the distance there, you can kind of see Mashaf, the Sorrow, the Steppes charging directly into the Vagrant Brotherhood. And here's a close-up of all my field charges going off for both my Saber Tusk as well as my 2 units of Ogres, my Iron Guts as well as my normal Ogres. They're failing their charge on that one, so that part was kind of sad. And yet I did get a successful charge off with Dolkana the Destroyer going directly into the Panzer Wolf, so yay! And finally, here's a close-up of the Red Rovers marching up forward in order to engage the Hellblaster volley gun, the Blitzen, because that thing needs to go away, and hopefully he can focus on these guys instead of focusing on the rest of my army. And that pretty much makes it the move phase for this one. So with the move phase over, we go directly to the magic phase. And the magic phase was totally just really sad. For the most part, I didn't really get many power dice on this one. I think I managed to get 6 power dice when it was all said and done. I did fire my fireball spell directly into the Black Company. I actually did the level 2 version where it causes 2d6 strength for hits. And unfortunately for me, though, I just kind of fizzled out my roll, so I only managed to kill 2 members of the Black Company, and that was pretty much it. Which is not so bad for my opponent, because King Khalifa can bring back his dead every single time he actually makes successful spell castings with his Lore of Life. He brings back another fighter. So that part is kind of sad as well. I did try to take the remainder of my power dice to cast the Red Sword of Ruin, the Fiery Sword of Ruin, directly off onto Mashaf the Destroyer, so that way I can get rid of that regen save on those Vagrant Brotherhood guys. But unfortunately for me, though, my opponent managed to dispel that with a Dispel Scroll, so that part was really, really sad. So with the magic phase over, we have to go directly to the shooting phase. And in the shooting phase, I opened up fire with the powder gangers directly into Rommel's Rangers. I decided to target that little 5-man detachment over there on the left-hand side. I managed to get 28 shots off, which is pretty awesome, but in the end, though, I only managed to kill 2 of those archers. And the reason why is because these archers are at toughness 7, and I'm firing a strength 4 gun at them, so basically just throwing rocks at them for all intents and purposes. So nothing much really happened with that. So that part was really demoralizing, just seeing how my powder gangers, which usually destroy toughness 3 armies, it just fizzled out for the most part, and that part was really, really sad. However, I did manage to kill the Panzerbearer, so that part was pretty cool. I actually managed to hit him twice with both of my Iron Blasters, both landing successful shots directly into him. The first one actually was fired from the Hammer of the Gods, managed to put 4 wounds on him, and the Anvil of Hell managed to finish him off with 3 wounds as well. So just like that, kaboom! The first steam tank is down, and only 1 more to go, which is pretty crazy. So with the shooting phase over, we go directly to the combat phase. And in the combat phase, Mashaf, the Sorrow of the Steppe, lives up to his name and dies, and makes it very, very sorrowful for my army as well. When it was all said and done, I only managed to kill 5 members of the Vagrant Brotherhood when it was all said and done. When they returned their attacks, because they got great weapons, I think just his captain by himself was Tybalt Kraus was enough to be able to kill off Mashaf. Mashaf only had 1 wound left on him anyway, so you know he wasn't really going to miss that much of a chance. And the reason why this army survived so well is because of those freaking regen saves that he got off with Earthblood. In reality, I managed to actually kill 13 of these guys, but my opponent King Khalifa was able to save 8 of those kills with the combination of thunder attacks, thunder strikes, thunderstomps, as well as the charging ability he had got off. So that was really demoralizing watching those knights survive, no problem with their regen saves. So I am extremely sad about that part. And finally, combat between Dolkana the Destroyer as well as the Steam Tank the Panzer Wolf was pretty much lackluster. He used up all of his steam points in order to fire his steam cannon, so he didn't have any actual steam points left in order to do any grind attacks, so that part was kind of great. So he had to rely upon his engineer to attack, and unfortunately his engineer just flubbed his rolls, and I can of course penetrate the armor on a steam tank. That's just really hard to do for a Saber Tusk. And that pretty much makes the combat phase on this one. So with the combat phase over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Empire. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Empire, and this photo is taken after the move phase, and as you can see in this photo, some charges have pretty much went off. King Khalifa decided to charge forward the Vagrant Brotherhood, and those guys made a long distance charge, smashing right and directly into my powder gangers. Unfortunately, though, I could not be able to stand and shoot as a charge reaction because the lead belcher guns are slow to fire, so now I'm facing out a huge unit of Inner Circle Knights with great weapons, so that's absolutely terrifying. Also, at the same time, he also sends in his skirmishers as well. Rommel's Rangers, as well as one of their 3-man detachments, charge directly into my Saber Tusk, which is right in the middle. That is Rohana the Blood Tracker. They started to engage him in close combat. At the same time, the 5-man detachments from Rommel's Rangers also charged directly into Stankum's Legion as well, kind of gumming up the works on that part. And so the reason why I did that is because these skirmishers really are just there to be sacrificial lambs. It's part of the whole Griffin formation tactic that was created on the Warhammer community webpage for the Empire people. Fans of the Empire Army, and so because of that, they've kind of done that in order to delay my forces from actually reaching his own. And then, oddly enough, what he decided to do for all of his infantry forces on the top of the page there with his Black Company as well as the Red and Blue Company, he decides to fall back instead and actually marches backwards and actually pulls away for a couple inches away from my main lines. And I think the reason why he did that is because he knows I'm close the distance for him, because I plan on popping the Hellheart here pretty soon. Like I said, King Khalifa is a pretty smart opponent, so he doesn't want to be as close as he possibly can, because that way if I roll low from the Hellheart, I won't be able to reach him. And so it's a pretty smart move on his part. And at the same time, it also buys him some time to put some to make me try to come to him, and at the same time he can shoot me to pieces as I try to cross the battlefield. And that pretty much makes the move phase on this one. Alright, so here's a close-up of the Vagrant Brotherhood charging directly into the Powder Gangers, and I'm actually kind of worried about this one because that is a huge honking unit of 16 Inner Circle Knights. They're strength 4 base, and they also got great weapons. and they can really chop up my guys as well. So, plus they're charging, and I'm pretty terrified to see exactly what these guys will do against my powder gangers. And here's a close-up of Rommel's Rangers. One of their detachments is with a 10-man unit charging directly into Rokana the Blood Tracker in order to get him engaged in close combat, so that way my Sabertech is pretty much preoccupied with that. But by doing this as well, he also made sure that I can't maneuver with my Stormseekers as well, and so that way Shan Yu the Fire Fist can't really engage with his main body of fighters. And here's a close-up of his 5 skirmishers from Rommel's Rangers charging directly into Stankum's Legion, tying me up for another round as well. And I'm not really too worried about this combat. I am kind of worried about him kind of like delaying my advance, but that's really about it for the most part. And here's a close-up of Dolkana the Destroyer engaged with the Panzer Wolf. At the same time, I'm kind of worried about this one though, because he decided to generate 4 steam points, and of course he can just grind down that Saber Tusk no problem with his grind attacks. So that's going to be pretty terrifying to see that happen. And finally, here's a close of the Black Company as well as the Red and Blue Companies, and they're moving backwards, putting some more distance between my battle lines as well as his own. So with the move phase over with, we go directly to the Magic phase. And in the Magic phase, I pop the Hellheart.
Klaatu, Murata.
I rolled a 5, so my d6, so 25 inches was actually perfect for me to negate all of his wizards. Unfortunately for me though, the Hellheart did not do all that great against him. Usually when I do the Hellheart, what ends up happening is that every enemy was within range at the rolls in the miscast table, which of course he had the 2 of them, so I was able to do that. The problem though is that his main wizard, which is Victor Hellsbred of the Wild, his Lore of Life wizard, he's the guy right there in the middle of the front rank with the Scythe, he has the Throne of Vines ability off, which means all he has to do is roll a d6 of 2 up, and he can automatically ignore all miscast results, and needless to say, he did exactly that. So that wizard, perfectly fine. The other wizard, which was maximally max, which is the Metal Lord Metal, was right in the back right there, the guy with the yellow cloak and the purple cloak. When he rolled the first result, I think he rolled a 7. I believe that's the one where everybody at base contact with the wizard suffers injuries, and nothing really happened because the wizard doesn't take any damage, and he's gotten basic contact with anyone, so he was perfectly fine as well. The only thing that my Hellheart did manage to do was in the magic phase, because I think it was 6 power dice were rolled up, and I believe it was 6 power dice that went away from that reaction for the 7 miscast, and that was pretty much about it. So I didn't really get to kill any wizards, but at the same time though, I did stop some spells, so I guess that is the silver lining and all that. So with the magic phase over, let's go directly to the shooting phase, and the first thing that King Khalifa does is he open fires with Donner, the Great Cannon, who manages to put 4 wounds directly onto the Anvil of Hell, which is really sad on that part. I got really lucky, all King things considered, because these things I think only have 5 wounds apiece, so I was 1 wound from having this thing being blown up, which is really, really scary. It does buy me another round to shoot with my Iron Blasters, which I'm really grateful for, but man, King Khalifa's firing is on point this battle. It's pretty rough. And finally, for the last part of the shooting phase, Blitzen, the Hellblaster volley gun, opens up on what was left of the Red Rovers and manages to atomize those guys right off the battlefield. There's a huge bloody puddle of meat and bone and viscera where the Red Rovers used to be at. I think he rolled like an 18 for the number of shots he got off of the Hellblaster volley guns. So, man, that thing is absolutely brutal, and that was absolutely terrifying to see that thing just chop through my unit like that. So with the shooting phase over with, we go directly to the combat phase, and needless to say, the Panzer Wolf had no problem grinding Dolkana the Destroyer into red paste beneath its steel wheels from the steam tank, so that part was pretty horrific. And of course, my Stankum's Legion had no problems finishing off those archers. They were not a challenge whatsoever. If I remember correctly, I think my 2 characters, Taijin Khan as well as Korgul the Giant Breaker, were enough to destroy that unit, falling with their stomp attacks as well, so you know, that much was pretty cool. So I don't have to worry about archers anymore, so that part was kind of nice. However, combat between Rohana, the Blood Tracker, as well as the Rommel's Rangers did not go according to plan. Rommel's Rangers absolutely chewed up my Sabertuck. They passed their fear test and had no problem just, putting their hurt directly onto my Sabertuck, so that part was kind of sad as well. And because they charged into him and also destroyed him in the same round of combat, they overrun and they go directly into the Stormseekers. So because of that, now Rommel's Rangers is tying up my Stormseekers from actually getting a flank charge or a rear charge off onto those Vagrant Brotherhood, at the same time as also engaging my forces, which is maddeningly frustrating. The reason why that is the case is because skirmishers are tying me up from doing anything. But of course, I mean, that's the point of skirmishers, I guess. They're there to be sacrificial lambs to prevent your opponent from doing anything, and King Khalifa is using his like a boss. Meanwhile, combat between the Powder Gangers as well as the Vagrant Brotherhood did not go well at all. As you can see in this photo, I do manage to kill 2 members of the Vagrant Brotherhood, which is pretty awesome. It's kind of weird because I got the strike first because I have initiative 2 with no great weapons, and while the Vagrant Brotherhood are all packing great weapons, so they always strike last. So I thought that part was kind of crazy. So I do manage to kill 2 knights. and that's all I actually killed. In return, the Vagrant Brotherhood were able to kill 3 of my lead belchers, as well as put 2 more wounds on a floating wound on the 4th one. So needless to say, they won combat in a bad way on this part. So they end up getting, I believe, 11 points from the wounds. They also charged, which gives them 12 points for combat res. They also have a standard in this unit as well, which gives them 13, plus a rank, which is 14. And then opposed to my nothing, my 2 kills I got there, I basically lose by 12 points, which means in order for my guys to stay in one pace, I have to roll snake eyes in order for them to stay. And as you can probably guess, I did not roll snake eyes. And when I went to flee, I actually flew back 4 inches, which I should have gotten away. I almost made it because my buddy King Khalifa, when he rolled for his pursuit, he rolled 2 1s and I believe it was a 2 is what it was. So I thought, yay, I'm getting away, no problem whatsoever. However, that unit also has the steel bat standard, which means that they get to reroll 1s for their charge distances. So because of that, he rolled like I think a 7 total when it was all said and done. The Vagrant Brother just runs down and kills all my powder gangers and destroys them, which is absolutely horrific. And then to make matters worse, they overrun directly into the Hammer of the Gods. So because of that, now one of my Iron Blasters now out of commission now because now it's engaged in close combat, which is, you know, a horrible thing. Plus it's getting charged in the flank, which is really bad as well. So that was absolutely terrifying. And I have no illusions that the Hammer of the Gods is going to survive because these guys are great knights. These knights are wielding great weapons, and they're just going to chop up my poor boy like it's nobody's business. So that part was horrifically atrocious. So with that devastation done, we go directly to the bottom turn number 2 for the Ogre Kingdoms, and it's my turn. Hooray! And so because of that, this photo is taken after the move phase. And so I start doing some creative movement because I realize now that maybe sending my Mordheim Cavalry on the left-hand flank for my Beastclaw Raiders might have been a bad idea, because now realizing I'm totally out of position with my Mordheim Cav, and that part's pretty rough as well. Plus, I have a very difficult decision ahead of me with my Iron Blaster. I could do a couple of things. I could take out the Great Cannon, which would save my Iron Blast from being shot off the table, which would be cool. But the problem I'm running into, of course, is that across the table is another steam tank. That's the Panzer Wolf. And so I can shoot at that and hopefully take that out. Or, to make things even worse, I got Blitzen, the Hellblaster volley gun, which can then mow down my Stankum's Legion. So I decide to take the Hammer Anvil of Hell and decide to scoot to the right, so that way I can shoot at the Panzer Wolf or at Blitzen. I'm probably going to shoot at Blitzen because that thing is absolutely terrifying. The Hellblaster volley guns are totally destructive. At the same time that's happening, the Stormseekers unfortunately are staying exactly where they're located at because they're currently engaged in close combat with some archers, and because I'm within line of sight of both the Hellblaster volley gun as well as Panzer Wolf on the right hand side, I decided to pull back with my Stankum's Legion and actually put him right behind between those 2 ruins. The ruins actually somewhat protect me from being shot at by the Hellblaster volley gun because the Panzer Wolf is in the way. So that does buy my guys some time from being shot at from the Hellblaster volley gun, so that part's kind of nice. And then of course over on the left hand side there you can see my Beastclaw Raiders. I march them as quick as they possibly can to get as quickly as they possibly can to the left hand side of the battlefield, because I need to start using those guys because they're just being, you know, doing nothing at this point, which is pretty bad. So here's a close-up of the Beastclaw Raiders, moving over to the left-hand flank. I do have to worry about that Great Cannon shooting at my guys, but at the same time, though, I guess that's the risk I run at this point, so kudos. And here's a close-up of the Hammer of the Gods, as well as the Anvil of Hell. The Hammer of the Gods is being engaged right now by the Vagrant Brotherhood, while the Anvil of Hell is trying to scoot around the left-hand side in order to shoot at something, in order to save some of my units from being shot by artillery pieces. And here's a close-up of the Stormseekers engaged with Rommel's Rangers, as well as my Stankum's Legion, which backed up right between the ruins in order to take some cover. And it should also be noted, too, that those little smoke billows of flame and smoke, those are some new terrain pieces that were created by a resident terrain wizard, Iron Major. And I decided, hey, why not put these things in the middle of these ruins? Because that would make them look really cool, like they're on fire. And I was right. It looks absolutely fantastic. So Iron Major, if you're watching this, buddy, great job on that smoke and fire, man. It is freaking amazing. And the way they look inside the ruins is completely awesome. So kudos to you, man. So we get to my magic phase, and unfortunately for me, I rolled Snake Eyes.
Klaatu, Marata.
Which basically means I have no magic phase at this point because I pretty much lost concentration. So the most important moment for me to use my magic phase, it totally goes out the window. So that part was pretty sad. Alright, so with the magic phase over, they go directly to the shooting phase. As you can see in this photo, I open fire upon the Hellblaster volley gun, and I destroy Blitzen with a wonderful, wonderful long-distance cannon shot from my Iron Blaster, the Anvil of Hell. The crazy part was, actually, the first time I actually fired it, I actually missed, but because it's an Iron Blaster, I get to roll 2 artillery dice in order to determine how much the cannonball skips by, and I get to choose the highest result. So I rolled the second one, I managed to hit that bad boy. I managed to put 5 wounds on that thing, so I managed to atomize it and kill the entire crew in one process. So that part was kind of nice, and I was getting a little bit of payback from my Red Rovers because those poor guys got atomized by that dang thing. So it felt pretty good to destroy that machinery. So with the shooting phase over with, go directly to the combat phase. And as you can see in the combat phase, my Stormseekers had no problem chopping apart the rest of Rommel's Rangers, so that part was kind of nice as well. My plan now is to get these guys out of here as quick as I possibly can and into King Khalifa's deployment area, because if I get bogged down by another set of archers, that's really going to screw up my plans. So that's the best I could hope for at this point. Unfortunately for me, combat between the Vagrant Brotherhood as well as the Anvil of the Hammer of the Gods did not go according to plan whatsoever. That poor guy just got smashed to pieces. Unfortunately for me, I just flubbed all my rolls for my attack. Basically, either I missed or the ones that did hit, I filled a wound, so nothing much pretty much came from that. However, these 14 angry Inner Circle Knights of the Vagrant Brotherhood had no problems hi-hoing it with great weapons and smashing up my poor Iron Blasters, so that part was pretty sad as well. And then they do this really cool-looking combat reform right afterwards in order to poke to the left, so that way they could charge and run my back ranks for my Stormseekers, or even worse, going after Schwarzwald Free Legion. So that part was pretty terrifying. And to make matters worse, this is the end of the turn, and the next turn goes to my buddy King Khalifa. So that takes us directly to the top of turn number 3 for the Empire, and this is photos taken after the movement phase, and as you can see in this photo, some dramatic movement really took place. The first thing that King Khalifa does, he declares a charge with the Vagrant Brotherhood, who aims directly for the back rank of Schwarzwald Legion, which was absolutely terrifying. And to make matters worse, he actually made that charge distance. He rolled boxcars in order to close that distance, so he had more than enough space in order to charge and wheel and smash directly into the back ranks of Schwarzwald Legion, so that part was pretty rough. For the rest of the move phase, he decides to close a distance with his infantry forces, and at this point, why not, because he's pretty much just mopping up what's left over. He marches up the Black Company, and because of that, he also marches up his detachments, so the Blue Company and the Red Company respectively go up on line with them. They're facing down this huge horde against my lone 6-man unit of Ogre Bulls from the Stormseekers. And to make matters worse, he decides to charge in his last 3 remaining archers from Rommel's Rangers, and they go charging directly into my Ogre Bulls. So that part really sucked, and I don't mind telling you that part. And then secondly, the last thing he decides to do with his compulsory moves, he generates 4 steam points for his steam tank, the Panzerwolf. The Panzerwolf goes crashing directly into the front of Schwarzwald Legion, catching in a pincer attack, and he's planning on using the other 2 steam points in order to grind my troops to pieces with grind attacks in the combat phase, or maybe powering a steam gun. It's a mixed bag. He can pretty much do whatever he wants. It's absolutely terrifying to contemplate what he's going to do. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that pretty much rounds up the movement phase. So here's a close-up of the last 3 members of Rommel's Rangers who managed to pass their panic check the last turn, and they go directly into the Stormseekers, so that part's kind of sad. And not to mention, there's a huge wave of, what is it, 80 Imperial fighters coming my way. 37 of those guys are, was it great swords, and then they also got 2 units of 20 halberdiers. It's just all kinds of bad. Those guys are going to be having no problem chopping up fools here in a second. And finally, here's another photo of the Panzerwolf charging directly into a pincer attack against Schwarzwald Legion. The Panzerwolf is hitting him from the front, while the Vagrant Brotherhood is hitting from behind as well. And in fact, as I look at this is actually a really nice photograph. It's really well done, in fact. I'm just going to be taking a moment here to just admire how cool it looks with all the colors and stuff. It just looks really neat. And the filling flames and stuff. It's just a really cool looking photograph. It's tragic because my Schwarzwald Legion are going to get chopped to pieces here, but at the same time, though, it's a really nice photo. You know, you gotta appreciate the smaller things in life. So, during the magic phase, my opponent totally dominated the magic phase on this one. He managed to get, I think, 10 power dice, and I think I managed to get 5 is what I ended up doing. He tried to cast off, what was it called? I think it's Regrowth is what he tried to do. Try to cast Regrowth off onto the Vagrant Brotherhood. He spent 4 dice using that, and I used my 5 of my dice I think I'd used in order to stop that spell from coming through. Used up all my power dice at the same time. So for the rest of the turn, he pretty much had the domination of the magic phase. He decided to put Flesh to Stone as well as Earthblood onto the Vagrant Brotherhood, giving them a 4-up regen as well as 4-up toughness. So these guys are now toughness 7 Vagrant Knights, Inner Circle Knights with great weapons who have a 4 regen save. Absolutely terrifying, I don't mind telling you. And because add insult to injury with the lore attribute from the lore of life, he brought back the 2 members of the Black Company that I killed previously in another round with a fireball. So that part kind of stung, you know. And King Khalifa, man, he just laughed when he did it, so that was pretty sad. So with the move phase over, to go directly to the shooting phase, and unfortunately, the very last of my Iron Blasters, the Anvil of Hell, gets shot off the table by Donner the Great Cannon. He only had 1 wound left on him anyways, so it was kind of sad. He opened fire with his cannon. I think he went from 10 from the back, and he skipped like 8 inches forward, and it was really bad. So because of that, the Anvil of Hell is no longer with us. So during the combat phase, the Storm Seekers had no problem taking out the last of Rommel's Rangers. They look very triumphant doing it, just smashing the last 3 archers left. Now, granted, I have a whole tidal wave of halberds and great weapons coming my way, but, you know, still looks pretty cool. Kind of like this last stand of the ogres. I like that a lot. Meanwhile, combat. Oh my god, the combat phase over here was an absolute bloodbath. I actually got off pretty good on this one, I have to admit. First thing I did is actually attack with Korgul Khan. Korgul, the Giant Breaker, I sent him directly into the back ring so that way he would make way, so that way he could fight against the Vagrant Brotherhood. Same thing with my General Taijin Khan, the Right Fist of Hell. Excuse me, I managed to actually kill 3 of those guys, which is a miracle that I was able to do it. So that part was pretty epic, especially considering those guys had 4-up toughness with a 4-up regen. I just got really lucky on my dice rolls, and King Khalifa just kind of filled his regen saves for the most part. So that part was pretty epic as well. However, when the counterattack of course happened, I lost 2 members of my Stinkham's Legion, so that part was kind of sad. However, the real killer though was the Steam Tank. The Steam Tank, oh my god, that thing opened up with its breath attack from the Steam Gun, using 2 points in order to do that to give a strength 4 Steam Blast, and man, just cooked a bunch of my Iron Guts alive. I think he managed to kill 3 of them, I think is what he managed to, no, sorry, 2 of them is what he ended up managing to do, so that part was just absolutely atrocious. Needless to say, of course, I did have to break, and unfortunately for me, I failed my break test, and of course, the Vagrant Brotherhood also pursued. Needless to say, the Vagrant Brotherhood ran down my guys and absolutely destroyed them, which was pretty horrific for me at that point, and it was just really sad seeing my entire Gut Star get chopped to pieces like that. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, that takes us directly to the end of the game, with the Empire managing to pull the win off on this one. The only thing I have left are my Mournfang Cav, which are pretty deadly by themselves, and a unit of 6 Ogres, which, you know, they're pretty good, but not against a Steam Tank, a Great Cannon, a majority of Knights, and a huge horde of Great Swords coming their way, so there's no way I'm going to be able to pull this victory off on this one, so I decided to call a game at this point. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this pretty much ends the game. We're going to go to the After Action report, because this game is now officially over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
I thought about staying. They offered me the chance to lead them, to teach them, to be king.
Uh-huh.
But my place is here, so I swallowed the juice, said the words, and here I am.
Did you say the words right this time?
Well, maybe I didn't say every single tiny little syllable, no, but basically I said them, yeah. Basically.
Alright people, now it's time for the After Action report. This is part of the battle report. We talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time that we do battle. This is the After Action report for the Golden Age Warhammer Fantasy Battle Report number 71, and this one ended up being a defeat for yours truly. I managed to get 760 victory points, while King Khalifa managed to steal 2,675. For my losses, I lost Taijin Khan, the Right Fist of Hell, Korgul, the Giant Breaker, the Red Rovers, Stinkham's Legion, the Powder Gangers, Romana, the Blood Tracker, Dolkana, the Destroyer, the Anvil of Hell, the Hammer of the Gods, and Mashaf, the Sorrow of the Steppe, and a Partridge in a Pear Tree, because I pretty much lost my entire army. King Khalifa, on the other hand, he lost Rommel's Rangers, Blitzen, the Panzer Baron, as well as the Panzer Wolf. So I did manage to kill 2 Steam Tanks, which is a moral victory as far as I'm concerned. Just to be perfectly honest, I was simply outplayed in this battle. King Khalifa is a boss when he's playing with his Empire army, and there are very few times I'm able to defeat him, and this is a perfect example as to why he wins most of the time when I fight against him. Pretty much for the most part, I just messed up from deployment. I spread out my forces too thinly, and I put my Beast Claw Raiders too far to the left-hand side, where they were pretty much useless for most of the battle, which is not a good thing for those guys, because those guys are meant to be committed and to cause all kinds of chaos. Plus, those skirmishing archers using the Griffin formation was extremely frustrating to go up against, I don't mind telling you. Delaying my forces like that by preventing my guys from getting into his larger infantry forces really messed up my game plan, because everyone knows Ogre armies do best when they charge in, and if I'm being countercharged all the time by a bunch of skirmishers, that's really going to mess up my plans for the most part. Plus, the Vagrant Brotherhood just outflanking and developing my entire army was also a stroke of genius as well. Not to mention, the magic phase is also very strong for the Empire during this game as well. that Cursed Throne of Vine spell in order to stop my Hellheart was really demoralizing. Usually when I use the Hellheart, it puts the Fear of God into most of my opponents, but that 2-up Ignore Miscasts was absolutely devastating, so because of that, nothing really bad happened to his units for the most part. And not only was he really good at the magic phase, he pretty much owned the shooting phase on this one as well. Going up against 3 different cannons and a Hellblaster volley gun is extremely difficult. Those guys can shoot apart anything that they go up against. They pretty much shoot at my units pretty quickly. They destroyed 1 unit of infantry, killed pretty much my monster as well as my Iron Blaster, so that part was really bad as well. Having 2 steam tanks, that thing is absolutely devastating. And then he's sending in his troops to finish me off with his cavalry for the most part. That was pretty rough. Even though it was really extremely difficult, and it was an extremely fun game nonetheless, however, and I had a blast playing against King Khalifa. It's always a good time when I'm playing against that guy, and I learned so much about my tactics and stuff when I go up against him as well. It's a steep learning curve to go up against that guy because he's really good with his Empire army. So that's going to do it for this one, you guys. As always, please feel free to comment, like, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is always appreciated. Also, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest, greatest hobby news on this channel. That's going to do it for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace out and stay classy.